Salute YouTube. Welcome to episode 10 of the Rod of God podcast. This is a very special edition of the Rod of God podcast. And first things first, I have to shout out the Angryman, like one of the G.O.A.T patriarchs of this space. I'll be linking down below. But again, shout out to the Angryman. Shout out to BeMA Nation, the block. Masculine mercenary. Shout out to Angryman and his team, his camp, his 300, his Spartans. Because by sharing that video, my subscribers went from at 108 or 124 to 328 as of the recording of this podcast. Yeah, this is episode 10 of the Rod of God podcast, so I had to get that out of the way. Shout out to the brother, the Angryman. But in episode 10, we're going to do something a little special here today. I don't know if you can tell I'm a little more dressed down. I don't want to suit and gentlemen. Can you see them? It's had an effect. I don't know if you can know. I can tell. Certain people say, I'm leaving the manosphere. I'm leaving the manosphere. For some of them, good riddance. The space doesn't need you. And you've outgrown it, perhaps. Or it's outgrown you. What is the masculine posture to criticism? Valid, legit criticism. How should masculine men respond to and manage and deal with legitimate criticism? Right? Not ad hominems, troll, stupid stuff. Legitimate criticism. Salute YouTube! Welcome to episode 10 of the Rod of God podcast. This is a very special edition of the Rod of God podcast. And first things first, I have to shout out the Angryman. Shout out to the block. Shout out to BeMA Nation. Shout out to the Masculine Mercenaries. Shout out to the Angryman 2. As I'm sure all of you are well aware, the Angryman was kind enough to share my video of the BeMA, the Black Excellence within the Manosphere Awards accolades. He was kind enough, big enough, man enough, thoughtful enough, real enough to share that video within the space. And that video is now my most watched video. It was the first video I've ever had to break 1,000 views. And it's honoring all of the different creators in this space, right? And that was the intent of the BeMA Award nominations. Not only the creators, but the mods. In the future, I plan to even nominating different chatters, because I do believe that everyone in this space, who contributes to this space should be recognized, right? It helps build an industry, a community. You'll notice there isn't an industry or a community that doesn't, honor its members for their excellence and their achievements. So I honor the Angryman right here and right now, yet again, because not only did he share that video, which has now become my most watched video, but on the moment that the Angryman shared that video, I had 108 or so, 100. It was either 108 or 124. So 8 and 24 are like multiples of each other, so I think. But it was either 108 or 124 subscribers that I had. And that was after a year of coming up here before you, preaching the gospel. As you can see from my first video, I always said from the beginning that, this is not about numbers for me. This is like my ministry. This is just what I've always done this, or I should say I've done this for a long time. In my adulthood, most of my adulthood, I've been, preaching the gospel, learning and discussing the Bible and theology, things like that. And so when I came to this space and I was like, oh, I could do that here. And you wouldn't believe me, but the Lord told me in 2008, in September 2008, interestingly enough, right around the time that they turned on the Large Hadron Collider, the collider, the big collider that just split atoms and looked for the God particle, quote unquote. It was literally like around that time. I found that out retroactively. But it was in September of 2008. The Lord told me, your ministry will be in motion pictures. And I was in L.A. and I was like, I'm not staying here. I'm leaving. And so I've been praying to you about it. You have to get me out of L.A. You have to get me out of this town. And go, I've gone into some of the stories from L.A. Now, eventually I'll get to them. Where, I just knew, so when the Lord told me motion pictures, I was like, I was just like, okay, whatever. And then it occurred to me once I started doing videos on this channel, these videos that I shoot and edit and write, they're motion pictures. It's a technical term, moving pictures, video. And so, I say all that to say that that's why I'm here. But so because of that, I always knew, listen, I'm never going to be some big channel, number one, and people aren't really interested in, the gospel channels, not in large numbers. So I never worried about that. But after a year of putting out content and not collaborating, but, being interviewed on different platforms and, making sure I keep myself, within, the day-to-day of the sphere, I only had like 100 and some subscribers. And to be honest, I'm so proud. I was so proud and still am of those 100 and so subscribers. It's so interesting because even if you have 100 subscribers, no matter how many subscribers you have, there will only be a very small percentage of them that consistently watch every video. So what I really, in my mind, I was like, if I could just get 100 people who we all together watch it all the time, talk, debate, and chat and, interact with each other all the time, that'd be perfect. Because this isn't like some place you're going to be giving me your money and anything like that. No, we're going to just, encourage each other and build each other up in the faith. And I got to 100, it was it's still just a small percentage of the 100 that watch the video. So I get why, people, try to grow their channels because that number is not really what's going on. It's like there are people who don't have a lot of subscribers at all and are much more successful than people with tens of thousands of subscribers. But I say all that to say, very long, drawn out way of saying again, thank you to the Angryman. Out of those 100 subscribers that I had, if you had not subscribed to the Angryman's channels, I'll be linking them down below. On the off chance you happen to subscribe to one of the G.O.A.T patriarchs of this space, I'll be linking him down below. But again, shout out to the Angryman, shout out to BeMA Nation, the Block, Masculine Mercenary, shout out to Angryman and his team, his camp, his 300, his Spartans. Because by sharing that video, my subscribers went from that 108 or 124 to 328 as of the recording of this podcast episode. Episode 10, 10 is a good round number too. I now have 328 subscribers. So that means Angryman increased my subscribers. His endorsement of the BeMA Awards video ended up. And on top of that, he's always, telling people, go check out the video, subscribe to him. So, he's done so much for me, that increased my subscribers by 300, 200%, however you count it. It's just amazing. Literally tripled the number of subscribers that I have. Shout out to Angryman. Thank you for that, sir. This is episode 10 of the Rod of God podcast, so I had to get that out of the way. Shout out to the brother, the Angryman. But in episode 10, we're going to do something a little special here today. I don't know if you can tell, I'm a little more dressed down on the suit and jeans. Can you even see them wearing jeans? It's actually what I wore on the Bernard Riley show for his he does like a group show on Fridays. His Gender War series, yeah. So I was like, I'm dressing up for that because I'm dressing up for work, so I might as well, wear this on the podcast. And you're going to see that so much went wrong technically with this, the next portion of the podcast I'm going to insert into the video here for you. They end up having to take off these clothes and preserve them and then put them back on for continuity. But so this is episode 10 of the Rod of God podcast. I'm so excited about this episode because it is, it's my 10th podcast episode, and I've reached 300 subscribers thanks to the Angryman. And, I have a lot of hope for the space now that I did not have when I recorded episode 9. Not to be the Angryman, cheerleader. But I just would be remiss not to acknowledge that, his willingness to go to all these different channels and to champion channels as small as mine, to joining up and linking up with Jap. I still have to finish that video of Angryman and Jap's collaboration. It's been really busy, but it's had an effect. I don't know if you can note. I don't know if you can tell. Certain people saying I'm leaving the manosphere. I'm leaving the manosphere. For some of them, good riddance. The space doesn't need you. And you've outgrown it, perhaps, or it's outgrown you, more likely. This is a very special episode. And the name of this episode is Kings and Criticism, or Errors and Omissions. I'll decide when I'm editing this and putting this together. What the key topic for this episode 10 of the Rod of God podcast is, what is the masculine posture to criticism, valid, legit criticism? How should masculine men respond to and manage and deal with legitimate criticisms, right? Not ad hominems, troll, stupid stuff. Legitimate criticism, right? And so that's why I'm titling this podcast Kings and Criticisms, or Errors and Omissions. We'll see. And what we're going to be doing is going to be looking at the book of 2 Samuel, chapter 16. And I have made a special pre-recorded kind of presentation for these scriptures for 2 Samuel, where I don't want to get too much into it because then it'll be redundant. I'll be repeating myself, but I'm going to go ahead and insert that here once I wrap up so that you can actually see. I want people to be able to see the scriptures out on the screen, not just me here reading it off my laptop. It's always good to actually see the words written out, which is why I decided to do this, and I paid for it. It's taken me forever to get this episode done, but that's okay. So without further ado, shout out MTR. Please check out this presentation of 2 Samuel and how it relates to a certain Mr. Kevin Samuels and his Kevin Samuels Defense Force in these very dark and troubling times. Check it out. Be right back. Thank you. How masculine men deal with their harshest critics. Kings and Criticism. So, I just wanted to go ahead and first of all give you the context of these scriptures I'm going to be reading. This is episode 10 again of the Rod of God podcast. Thanks to my 300 subscribers. Thanks to the Angryman. One of the things I want to do with this episode is to actually show you how I actually want to show you the scriptures on the screen when I read them. You may notice that the format of the podcast is I
I start off with our first topic, and that first topic is usually going to tie in with the scriptures that we're going to be reading, tying with the Bible, I should say. That's where I'm going to tie in the red pill with the red letter of the Bible. And usually I'll just read the scriptures from off my laptop. I'm kind of straining to read them. But I wanted to actually put the scriptures on the screen here. So let's go ahead and get into it. I'm going to be reading from 2 Samuel chapter 16. And the context here is King David's son, Absalom, has conspired to depose the king and to kill him. King David has been forced to flee the capital city of Jerusalem and to wander the desert. Oftentimes you'll hear the Bible say they were wandering the wilderness. The wilderness means the desert. I think a lot of us, we think wilderness and we think, there's a bunch of trees and forests. Nope, it's the desert. And so that's where King David has been forced to flee because his own son is trying to dethrone him. That's what depose means. Basically, remove him from office and kill him and take over as the king in his place, in his stead. So I just want to provide this context here for these scriptures that we're going to be getting to in terms of how King David, this anointed man of God, a man after God's own heart, how did he deal with criticism in this very trying time, right? Your own son is trying to kill you. So just wanted to provide a little bit of context there. Of course, King David is the second king of Israel. The first king was King Saul, and King Saul, ended up actually declaring war on David as well. David ended up having to, even though he was a son figure to King Saul, he was not King Saul's actual son. Jonathan was, like David's best friend, Jonathan. But King David was pretty much a son figure, or I should say King Saul was a father figure for David until he turned on him and wanted to kill him. So now King David has had a father figure turn on him and try to kill him, and now his own son is turning on him and trying to kill him. And you're going to see here that in spite of this very troubling time, King David is going to have some pretty serious criticisms and critiques levied at him. And I think that the Bible is giving us an excellent blueprint for how to deal with criticism as men. Masculinity. How do we as men deal with criticism in this day and age? And so, let's go ahead and get on with the next screenshot here. So we have 2 Samuel chapter 16, verse 5. And when King David came to Bahurim, behold, thence came out a man of the family of the house of Saul, whose name was Shimei, the son of Gera. He came forth and cursed still as he came. So we have this loyalist, this King Saul loyalist. Recall, King David has had to actually do battle with his own king, fighting with the enemies of Israel, the Philistines. And, in the end, King Saul ended up having to commit suicide because he was defeated in battle. And so there was a lot of bloodshed before David, in order for David to be installed as the king of Israel. And this gentleman, obviously, Shimei, he obviously is a Saul loyalist, and he has a grudge. He's holding on to a grudge, and he's coming at the king of Israel himself, King David, and he's cursing King David as he comes up. This is something that's very dangerous. So let's get on over to the next slide here. And he cast stones at David and at all the servants of King David. And all the people and all the mighty men were on his right hand and on his left hand. So again, the Bible is not stories. These are histories. This really happened. And what's going on here is King David is in the wilderness. He's kind of, has a huge company with him. These mighty men, these are the mighty, fierce warriors that have fought all these countless battles with David and for David. Very highly skilled, highly trained killers and soldiers, and also there are, some people of the city itself. Basically, imagine a scene where it's like refugees. They're fleeing the capital city because King David's son Absalom is on his way to Jerusalem to take it over and kind of complete his coup d'état, to try to take over the country from his father. And this man is not only cursing King David, he's casting stones at King David and at all of the servants of King David. So he is throwing rocks at not only the king, but the king's most dangerous and skillful warriors and men. So we'll get on to the next slide here. Verse 7. And thus said Shimei when he cursed, come out, thou bloody man, and thou man of Belial. I mean, this is very, very treacherous language here being used towards royalty. It's basically calling David not a man of God, but a man of the devil. In verse 8, the Lord hath returned upon thee all the blood of the house of Saul, in whose stead thou hast reigned. And the Lord hath delivered the kingdom into the hand of Absalom thy son. And behold, thou art taken in thy mischief, because thou art a bloody man. So what, this very, very vocal critic, this very harsh critic of King David, wink, wink, what I'm getting at here with the reading of these scriptures, is he's calling out David. He's basically telling David, you reap what you sow. Saul was like a father figure to you, and you were like his son. You waged civil war against him, and that's how you got the throne. Well, now your own son is waging war against you. And so one thing you'll notice about your harsh critics is, a really good harsh critic is going to harshly criticize you with some truth and with some facts. And the truth is that, David was a bloody man. God himself says that about King David. That's why God would not allow King David to build the temple. His son, Solomon, had to build the temple. And so, again, this is what I'm building towards here. How do we as masculine men deal with honest critique, even if it's coming from someone who's a hater, right? Because, the way this man is describing the events and trying to put it all off on David, like he's just reaping what he sowed. Well, there was a lot more going on than that. King Saul was being tortured by demons, remember? And David would have to play the harp to make the demons go away and give him peace. King Saul was very disobedient to God. He basically tried to assume the position of king and priest. That's blasphemy. That is only for the church and Melchizedek, which was, a strange thing we'll get into one day, I'm sure. But King Saul was a very, very, very troubled person. And the Lord himself said, that is it. You must go. It was the Lord who worked out David's gaining the throne, and not because David is some evil man and this is now, being done back to him. He's now reaping what he sowed. That's not legitimate. But there is some truth in there. Again, look at our book of Job Bible studies where we get into how the Lord will use the accusations of the devil, of evil. The Lord will use the evil brought against you for good. Because, this accusation, although, it is, you could say it's been exaggerated, it's coming from a place of hate instead of a place of truth. Yet still, there are pieces of truth in there, right? So we'll go ahead and go to the next slide. Verse 9, then said Abishai, the son of Zeruiah, unto the king, why should this dead dog curse my lord the king? Let me go over, I pray thee, and take off his head. So this again, David's mighty warriors are there with him as they're kind of like refugees leaving Jerusalem through the desert. And Abishai, is like, yo, who was this? Call him a dead dog. Damn, to curse you, the king. Let me go and separate the head from his neck. Let me go and shut him up. Let me go and suppress this harsh critic. Let me go and silence this harsh critic. Right? Wink, wink. But let's see, what does King David say in verse 10? And the king said, what have I to do with you, ye sons of Zeruiah? So let him curse, because the Lord have said unto him, curse David. Who shall they say, wherefore hast thou done so? So this is King David basically rebuking his mighty man, his mighty warrior, who was just trying to defend his honor. He's saying, yo, my king, we ain't going to let this, dude come around here and just curse you out, and even though he's saying truthful things, no, who is he? He's throwing rocks at us. Let me go and, take care of him. Again, masculinity. Look to the scriptures for masculinity. Don't look to these modern people. These modern people so damn lost, as you can clearly see. But what does King David say? He rebukes him. What do I have to do with you? He has everything to do with him. He's one of his mighty men, but that's his rebuking of him. Says, no, the Lord has said unto this man to curse me. So how are we going to stop him? Deep. And that's the thing. Like, if you aren't in tune with the spirit of the creator of the universe, you lost. And David is so in tune. David is self-aware, a term that I've used and I've heard even people like Kevin Samuels use. It's one thing to say it, but it's obvious in Kevin Samuels' case that he lacks it severely, right? You don't have to use your power to silence your critics. You can let your critics speak if you have it, if they have legitimate criticisms, even if they don't, but especially have legitimate criticism. You don't move to silence those people. You don't move to suppress those people. You don't have back end deals to say, hey, don't, put this person on your platform. That's bitch shit. Real man shit like what King David is doing right here. Let him curse. So let him curse, because the Lord has sent him to say this to me. Let's get into the next verse. Verse 11, and David said to Abishai and to all his servants, behold, my son, which came forth of my bowels, seeketh my life. How much more now may this Benjamite do it? Let him alone, and let him curse, for the Lord hath bidden him. Again, whoa, this is the level of security that David has in his masculinity and his power and his relationship with his creator, with the Father of all creation, the King of the universe, right? The Heavenly Father. David is so self-aware that number one, he realizes, you know what? I am a bloody man, as I said earlier. Even the Lord said that. He fought a lot of battles for the Lord, right? But he shed a lot of blood in those battles. So maybe this is me reaping what I sow in a way. But the bigger point that David is getting at is my own son that came from my loins, my nutsack, is trying to kill me. What is this, screaming old man to me? And again, power and authority. You want to know what it is and how to conduct yourselves with power and authority. Look to those who have already done it. Stop trying to reinvent the man. Men have been around for a long ass time. If you find yourself in a position where you're the king of your castle, whether it's just your home, or you're the king of some space, right? Where a lot of, you're at least the face of a particular space. Wink, wink. You need to go and read your scriptures. And people like Kevin Samuels will say silly shit like, the Bible is a business or church is business. And this is why he can say silly shit like that, because he's become detached from his word, like most of the, Western men have become. And then you have all these unforced errors and these humiliations, because it's just it's just the truth. If you do not retain God in your knowledge when these moments come along that are the crucial moments of life, you'll fail. What would David's legacy be if he had ordered his general to separate that man's head from his neck? But instead, look at this legacy of masculinity. I'm not worried about this. My own son's trying to kill me. And you know what? The Lord has sent him to criticize me. Which of these men, who, call themselves to be leaders of this space or leaders of other men, which of them would say when they had a harsh criticism, you know what? The Lord sent that person to say that to me. They think they're the Lord. And their defense forces treat them so, and that's why I'm doing this part of the scriptures here. We need to be deliberate about these things. We need to meditate on these things, and you need to wake up if you're among the defense force. Let's go to the next verse. Verse 12. It may be that the Lord will look on mine affliction, and that the Lord will requite me good for his cursing this day. And now we get the full picture, the full expression of the thought that David is getting at. This is why him being a man of God, this harsh critic called him a man of Belial. That's basically saying he's a man of the devil, a man of a demon. Belial was the name of a demon. He's not a man of a demon. He's not a man of devils. He's a man of God. And being a man of God, he does not try to silence his harsh criticisms, his harsh critics, right? He lets them have their freedom to critique him, but beyond that, he understands that there can be truth and harsh criticisms. And beyond that, he can put it all into context, right? He doesn't get caught up on the criticism. There were so many times throughout this Kevin Samuels debacle with Nicki Minaj, this disaster. And it wasn't as disastrous as it became a lot more disastrous than it needed to be because of the defense force, because simple criticisms were attacked. And people, the Kevin Samuels defense force, they lost sight of the big picture, the context. He still talked to Nicki Minaj. Let these people have their legitimate criticisms because they're true. And if you don't want to acknowledge them publicly because you're that zealous for another man, fine. But that didn't happen. The attacks came, the you're hating, the dividing the space, calling anybody who disagrees with you a pookie. It's just the ultimate in weakness. So let's go ahead and go to the next verse. Actually, you know what? Another thing I want to point out in this verse is, that David also realizes that in suffering these very harsh criticisms from this very harsh critic, even from this hater, that the Lord might, do him good for having forbearance toward this man who is not only saying these things, recall, he's also throwing rocks at them. And so, again, having that context, seeing the bigger picture, another way that David sees the bigger picture, not only in that his son is, trying to kill him, but also he sees the big picture that, the Lord is going to use this for good. And again, check out our Book of Job Bible studies where we get more into that. And so verse 13, and as David and his men went by the way, Shimei went along on the hill's side over against him and cursed as he went and threw stones at him and cast dust. So again, we read these scriptures sometimes. I think we just read it as just like words, but these things really happened. The Bible is histories. It's not stories. These are histories. So put yourself in the scene here of what's going on. This long kind of procession leading away from Jerusalem out into the desert and God knows where. Uh, and king amongst them, and he's surrounded by his mighty men, his warriors, his generals, and then he has some civilians there with him as well. And this crazy man is coming out cursing the king, throwing rocks at the king, throwing rocks at his army. And the king has said, leave him alone. Don't bother him, right? And the king is humble. He's not humble to his critic. He's humbled himself to God. King David is not humbling himself to this raving critic, this harsh critic. And to keep it in line with what we're talking about today, he humbles himself to God. Maybe God will bring some good about to me because of this. But even still, the man is still throwing dirt. Like you fight somebody and they fight dirt, they throw dirt in your eyes, and he's throwing dirt. It's flying in their eyes, it's flying in their face, rocks flying at them. And they press on because it's just a critic. And that's how masculinity deals with harsh criticism and harsh critics. They eat the meat and spit out the bones. Is there something valid in there that I should hear? That is true, even if it's coming from a hater. Okay? If it's not, discard all of it. If there's something that's true, okay, you know what, that's true. I don't have to admit it to you, but I damn sure won't be going out and sending out my minions, my acolytes, to try to, suppress, free speech. It's like, some of these people act like they're a protected class. And it's just so astounding to me that a space where men came to because their woman refused to accept any criticism or critique. Shout out the Angryman who pointed this out. That's what this space is about. And it's astonishing that those same men who came here and those same men who built their platforms on the fact that the feminine refuses to accept criticism, the feminine refuses to be critiqued, they themselves refuse to be critiqued. It's hilarious. And it's feminine, right? So that's what I wanted to point out in today's scriptures. So we'll go back and get back into the Rod of God podcast, episode 10.
One that Jessica X did about domestic violence, women who commit domestic violence against men, B-dubs who commit domestic violence against men. And it was so profound, and she was just letting this footage play because there were, of course, there were people in her chat saying, "No, that's not true. That's not true. That's not true." And Jessica X was saying, she was giving the evidence, and YouTube pulled that video down midstream. We are kind of the shit, you know. Yeah, in terms of this space has so much to be proud of. I know we have ninja shit going on. That is always going to happen. To be honest, that is not unique to Black people. All groups of people have their ninja shit, their version of ninja shit, right? But it was just it was important to me to get it out, because we do have a lot to be proud of in this space. I don't know if we say that enough, but yeah, there were some errors and omissions, so I wanted to address that. Again, critiquing, legitimate, valid critique. After all that hard work I put into it, nobody wanted to, share it or, acknowledge it. And then until Angryman came along, right? I still had to receive critique. And one of the critiques that, there are some critiques I want to address right here, right now. The errors and omissions, so the first things first, GO.A.T Patriarchs, greatest video. How's the L.A.R movement not among the GO.A.T Patriarchs? And I said, you're right. I mean, you're right. It was weighed more heavily towards live streams because although live streaming is a lot more easier in that you don't have to edit like I'm gonna have to do with this, you can just kind of just spark up and go. Anything can go wrong on live streams. And just like I had all this trouble technically, which is why this video was delayed, that can happen live while you're live streaming, and you have to work it out and fix it right there. And just not only that, but it's just like, the best production really is kind of like a best picture Oscar. It's like it's the whole thing. So it's your talent, your content, your visuals, your direction, your writing, your lighting, your sound. It was everything. And to be honest, with O'Shea, with Celebrity Junkie for his other projects, it's like a crew, right? That's really what I'm getting at. More weight was put towards people who are doing it by themselves. When it comes to production, of course, and of course to just Angryman across the board, he's well represented in most categories. And I didn't want it to be that way, because there comes a point where you can't, like, what are you going to not nominate him for something that he is not only great at, but he, is arguably the best at? You have to kind of, give props where they were due. And he does it live. He does it as a one-man show, which means there's a greater degree of difficulty, right? Watch the Olympics or something. You'll see, the more difficult something is to pull off. When that person or that athlete pulls it off, they're gonna win. The thing that I considered with Creator of the Year was any brother or channel that had like a breakthrough success, right? And that's where the Poor Man's Podcast and the Mediocre Tutorials and Reviews came. These are brothers who, in just a year that I've been in space, just went, you know. And so, I thought that they should be recognized as Creator of the Year, because obviously they were doing something right there. Hit it, and especially since when they hit it, and they really caught on, and now they're on fire and they're off to the races, right? They did it without compromising themselves. Welcome back to the Rod of God podcast, episode 10, Kings and Criticism. So I hope you enjoyed that presentation that I put together there, and take to heart, what I'm saying in terms of, and what the Bible says in terms of, how we should deal with legitimate critiques and legitimate criticisms. I know as men, it can be very difficult to deal with critique when you work very, very hard and you put your blood, sweat, and tears into something, and someone comes along who has not worked that hard, obviously because they aren't you, so they haven't put that blood, sweat, and tears into the work the way you have. I know that can be something that's very difficult to hear criticism from, but we just have to remember that, all criticism is lopsided or disproportionate in that regard. No matter what it is, the thing that is being, or the one that is being critiqued, the creator that is being critiqued, has always put in more work than the person who's doing than the critic, right? The critic is just, the product was made for that person or people like that person, and that person consumed the product, and now they have an opinion about it. And it can be difficult for us as men to recognize how incredibly essential it is that we entertain and we deliberate on legitimate critique. The Lord God himself does not forbid men from critiquing him, which we're going to get into in the book of Job. Sorry for all these pardon the interruption videos I've been having to do, but we're going to get back into Job to wrap it up so that we can get on into the New Testament and the Gospel of John. But yes, so that's just something I just really wanted to focus on with this episode, that we remember that, even criticism from, a hater, if it has some truth in it, we don't have to admit it to them, but within ourselves to be able to say, I don't know. So, I should say, maybe there's something to that, at least that one part of the critique. Maybe not, and throw out all the rest of it, but, that is kind of, I do that, So, yeah, and that it is extremely feminine. And extremely demonic
even to seek to silence people, to flag channels, to it's crazy, what's going on here. But the Lord is going to make sure that the truth gets out, because that's what the end times is all about: the revelation, the revealing of God to His people, to creation, I should say. That means the truth is going to be coming out in these last days, which can be days or decades. I mean, we don't know, right? It's already, technically, the last days have been going on for 2,000 years. Technically, the last days started with Christ entering His creation. But yeah, these last days, we know we're 2,000 years after that, so it's getting a lot closer. It's a lot sooner than later. But yeah, that's what it's about. It's about the truth being revealed. It's about all the deceptions and the lies of the enemy, Satan, and the machines, the world, the matrix. It all gets blown out into the open, right? So the Lord is going to make sure that the truth gets out. And we're just going to have to fight these battles and make sure if someone's channel gets taken, we go and we jump on it. We should be announcing it to the space. So-and-so's channel got taken down. This is their new channel. Go and subscribe. Shout out to the Angryman, who I think it was him or someone in his chat who was saying, Tommy Sotomayor's new channel. And I went and subscribed. That's what we have to do. And I'm sorry if it was somebody else. Maybe it was Mr. Palmer. I can't remember. But shout out to the brothers in this space who are doing that. I've seen Bernard Riley do that. When Nate Dogg 77s, Little Big Nate, formerly Little Big Nate, when his channel got taken down, and Bernard labored constantly. I think same thing happened with Game Changer. Bernard labored constantly, always reminding people, go and subscribe to their new channels. And these are the things we have to do. This is the way we're gonna have to fight the machines, right? Until we win the war, and things are looking good for us. All right, let's put it like that. So for this last portion of the Rod of God podcast, episode 10, this is the errors and omissions portion of the show. I wanted to address the BeMA Awards. So basically, I put in a lot of time into the BeMA Awards. Basically, as throughout the year, as I was viewing different content and paying attention to different things, I actually would start my own private playlist of live streams, that really stood out to me and that were really just groundbreaking, either in the content of what they were talking about, or like, for instance, there's one, it's gonna be controversial, there was one that Jessica X did about domestic violence, women who commit domestic violence against men, B-dubs who commit domestic violence against men. And it was so profound, and she was just letting this footage play, because there were people in her chat saying, "No, that's not true, that's not true, that's not true." And Jessica X was saying, she was given the evidence. And YouTube pulled that video down midstream. YouTube struck it down. And that was a video that I had planned to nominate for Stream of the Year. But if the video was taken down, I didn't see the need of nominating it, because no one can find it. And if you weren't there, you didn't get to see it. So, I'm just giving you a little bit of the thought process behind the BeMA Awards. That's what I would do. As different, incredible live streams would go on, or I would notice, like one day I was in AM1's, on AM1's channel in his chat, and I just noticed the incredible production AM1 has. And I was like, oh wow, and this dude, he has great visuals, he has great sound, this dude. And so I would mark, and when it came time to do the nominations, I did kind of rush it, because I was like, well, I want to get this out so that, I was hoping as it would be like a peacemaking kind of thing. Well, hey, we are kind of the shit, Yeah, in terms of this space has so much to be proud of. I know we have ninja shit going on. that is always going to happen. To be honest, that is not unique to black people. All groups of people have their ninja shit, their version of ninja shit, right? Uh, but it was just it was it was important to me to get it out, because we do have a lot to be proud of in this space. And I don't know if we say that enough because we're always trying to deal with the problems in this space, which is good, which is what masculinity does. Root out the problems so you can really start building, right? But I do think it's important to still, take time to recognize the good going on in this space and the spaces that are, adjacent to it, right? As long as it's black men, that's what it was about for me, right? So at the same time, with all that work that I put into it, when it came to producing the actual video, there was a bit of a rush going on. Very busy with work, very busy with my son, very busy with life. So I try to get things done as best as I can. As you can see, it's been forever since I posted a video. So sorry, I'm gonna get more consistent. But yeah, there were some errors and omissions, so I wanted to address them. Again, critiquing, legitimate, valid critique. After all that hard work I put into it, and nobody wanted to, share it or, acknowledge it, and then until Angryman came along, right? I still had to receive critique, and one of the critiques that, there are some critiques I want to address right here and right now. This is the errors and omissions portion, right? So the first things first. GOAT patriarchs, greatest of all time patriarchs, right? Of course, this being a channel about the Bible, Word of God podcast, with red letter of the Bible, where the red pill meets the red letter of the Bible. Of course, the nation of Israel, the children of Israel, are made of 12 tribes, and those 12 tribes are from the 12 patriarchs, the 12 sons of Jacob, whose name was changed to Israel, right? After he wrestled with God and God put out his hip. He had 12 sons. That man who wrestled with God and God put out his hip. He had 12 sons. And each of those 12 sons are the patriarchs of the children of Israel. All of the tribes were named after those 12 sons. There were some changes, but, keeping it basic, right? So, that's how I decided on GOAT patriarchs. Who are the first ones that really set this whole thing off? And doing it in February, the Black History Month. So that is how I chose, that category. And I did think it was important to include brothers like Patrice O'Neal, who had passed, brothers like, of course, David Carroll, who has passed. I thought it was important to, reach back and to try to spotlight some of those older, the phase one, was it called 1.0 Black Manosphere, right? But in that, I did, there were some omissions. Number one, L.A.R. movement, right? Someone commented on the video, how's the L.A.R. movement not among the GOAT patriarchs? And I said, you're right. You're right. I can tell you that when it came to the nominations, I wanted to, full disclosure, I wanted to spread them out. I wanted to spread out the nominations. I wanted to to be honest, my goal was to get everyone in, to be honest, the best DJ category was created for DJ Kuda, like mask off. It was like, we gotta get Kuda, son, make best DJ. And then it's like, that damn Angryman, man. I mean, it's like, you go to his channel afterwards, it's like, oh my God, like this dude like really could be like a professional DJ. Like, it's like, whoa. But, that was the point, was trying to get everyone in. And for me, it was very important that L.A.R. movements stream Death of the Real Nigga and him as a content creator. It was important to me that he was recognized in those major categories, because the thought process was live stream and content creator of the year were the biggest, categories. And if it was like the Oscars or something, it would be like, best picture and I don't know, maybe like best picture and best director, right? Like the huge awards of the evening. And so because L.A.R. was, I had already identified, like, this dude is so prolific. He's always putting out his material. He had to be in both categories. You'll notice that it's rare. I think only L.A.R. and the Angryman are included in both of those major categories. So yeah, I think there was something in me that was maybe like, okay, I don't want to seem like I'm just pouring on too much. But the good thing is, once we actually have the awards sometime, hopefully in late May, early June, I just want to make sure I get like a good, powerful laptop that can stream it correctly. If I can't, I'm just gonna go to another content creator and say, can we stream it on your show, on your channel? Because I don't want to handicap the awards by my technical handicaps. Something that's happened recently where I can't use my high power laptop, so that's just that. I have to buy another one, and they're not cheap, and I don't like making big purchases. And so that I have to concede. L.A.R. movement probably should have, if he wasn't in the Gold Patriarchs as the officially automatically inducted, no ballot into the Hall of Fame, he definitely should have been first ballot. Another critique that I heard was about O'Shea Duke Jackson, which you'll notice, he's no longer going to be listed on anything having to do with the BeMA Awards, and that is by his request. He does not want to be included. Before that, he was nominated in several categories. One category that he was not nominated in was Best Production. And it was brought up to me that how could O'Shea not be nominated for Best Production? I also agree, this is a legitimate criticism, right? O'Shea's production is, if you see O'Shea's, I don't know if you ever watched O'Shea's Celebrity Junk on your high def, date myself. I don't know if you ever watched O'Shea's content on your television, your high, I'm still giving myself away. I don't even know what it's called. You could say high def, I guess you could say 4K TV. It's so crisp and stunning in terms of like the different like stock footage that he'll put in as he's commentating on different things. Very, very, high level of production there. And of course, O'Shea has done like little skit type productions that are like mini movies. So I have like been, I want to say I'm the person who's the most vocal about, look at his production. The reason why O'Shea wasn't nominated for Best Production is because these awards are about who can produce, who has the best production in terms of, creating this content. And to be honest, it was weighed more heavily towards live streamers, because although live streaming is a lot more easier in that you don't have to edit like I'm gonna have to do with this, you could just kind of just spark up and go. Anything can go wrong on live streams. And just like I had all this trouble technically, which is why this video was delayed, that can happen live while you're live streaming, and you have to work it out and fix it right there. And to be honest, to be able to produce high quality production live is a lot more difficult than producing high quality production pre-recorded, because you can do multiple takes. There are things you can do in post-production to fix some mistakes that you've made and things like that. So that was the thought process. The thought process was like, who has the best production in terms of like either, yes, turn on their camera and pre-recording, right? And that's what O'Shea does, but also in like live streaming. And just not only that, but it's just like, the best production really is kind of like a best picture Oscar. It's like, it's the whole thing. So it's your talent, your content, your visuals, your direction, your writing, your lighting, your sound. It was everything. And to be honest, with O'Shea, with Celebrity Junk and with his other projects, it's like a crew, right? That's really what I'm getting at. More weight was put towards people who are doing it by themselves. But even that being said, I do think like over somebody like the roommates, right? O'Shea should have been nominated. So I agree with that. Let's see, another one was the Angryman for studio design, right? Angryman's virtual studio is the best. Angryman's just looking at the four corners of the screen that he produces. to me, is like the best that there is in the space. It's always super crisp. His sound is always super crisp. His creativity in terms of he'll just go from with the issues with the attack on his channel to and I'm gonna do the block, and it's hot, literally. He'll just come out in flames behind him, and it's super high definition. It's like, bruh, when it comes to production, of course, and of course to just Angryman across the board, he's well represented in most categories. And I didn't want it to be that way, but there comes a point where you can't, what are you going to not nominate him for something that he is not only great at, but he, is arguably the best at? You had to kind of, give props where they were due. And he does it live. He does it as a one-man show, which means there's a greater degree of difficulty, right? Watch the Olympics or something. You'll see the more difficult something is to pull off. When that person or that athlete pulls it off, they're going to win. Even though this other person did all this other stuff, yeah, but that thing that they did is so hard to do, they got it. So that was what was weighted. But when it came to the Angryman's studio, it's a virtual studio, right? It's not a practically built studio. Well, now, to be honest, it's pretty much becoming a practical studio now. At the time of the nominations, it was pretty much just virtual, and I think it looks great. Like I said, I think it looks better than anything else we have going on in terms of its consistently high quality. But it wasn't, I was looking at practical studios. We had built practical studios. That is why Angryman wasn't mentioned in that category. And then let's see, there were things like Best Book for MBD, Madbusdriver X. He has a book out I was not aware of. I would have definitely, tried to have nominated that because the best book category is to promote our books. Those of us among us who are authors, to promote our books, for people to say, oh, so-and-so wrote a book. Like me, I had no idea Madbusdriver had wrote a book. And it's like, these are the things, like, if we can put those things out there, other people, because you gotta keep in mind, new people are gonna start coming to this space more and more and more. So they should be buying. Brothers that have written books, they should be directed to buy them. So that's another oversight, MBD's book. Let's see, was there any other oversights? I just put a note here about Creator of the Year. With Creator of the Year, it was focusing on whether the content was by men and for men, or whether the content was, just kind of like speaking of celebrity jump, like that would not be, that would not be something that qualified as Creator of the Year, because it's not, it's like celebrity entertainment, celebrity commentary, right? And I think, you can definitely do celebrity commentary and really bring it home to the men in this space and use it as examples. But in terms of the Creator of the Year, somebody like L.A.R. movement, somebody like the Angryman, who puts out video after video, L.A.R. too, video after video, thought-provoking, just profound, these are prolific creators. That is why they, like I said, they had to be in that, and men like them, right? Another thing that I considered with the Creator of the Year was any channel, any brother or channel that had a breakthrough success, right? And that's where the Poor Man's Podcast and the Mediocre Tutorials and Reviews came in. These are brothers who, in just a year that I've been in this space, just went, and so, I thought that they should be recognized as Creator of the Year, because obviously they was doing something right to, hit it, and especially since when they hit it, and they really caught on, and now they're on fire and they're off to the races, right? They did it without compromising themselves and who they are. They didn't look at Kevin Samuels and say, oh, okay, I'm going to start wearing suits and lighting candles to get there. They did it the way they do it, the way they are. And I felt that, I thought that should be commended. So that's why I included them in that category. But I fully admit, full disclosure, the awards were not perfect, and I look forward to more categories, as I said, next year, and just making it a lot more interactive in terms of the nominees. Whoever is nominated and wins this year will automatically be a part of the academy, quote unquote. I am using the same model as the Oscars in terms of whoever wins becomes a member, and then they then decide the nominees. And so, now hopefully, those who win will be, filling out the nominations ballot, come another 10 months or so from now when I send it out. And we can get it a lot more, well-rounded group of nominees, and limit some of those errors and omissions. All right, well, that is the end of episode 10 of the Rod of God podcast. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening, subscribing. Really, I'm so humble. I'm so appreciative. I promise I will try to put out more content more consistently. But my career is just very, very busy right now. And it's a career, right? It's something that I had to, it's specialized. And so, it's important to me. I'm very happy in my career. I have no plans on being a full-time YouTuber. That's not taking anything away from any full-time YouTubers, but that's not me, it took me a long time to find my profession that I was happy with. And once I found it, nothing is taking me away from that because I love it. I love what I do. I enjoy what I do. And I had to fight so hard to get there that I appreciate it. And I know the Lord don't make no mistakes. I found my career very late in life. So I love it. And I enjoy doing it. And that's what I'm going to do. And then, of course, I have a son. I got to give him time and attention and, make sure he's good. And then, just personal life. Gotta make some time for me too. And then of course it's the space itself, right? There's been a lot going on, as I'm sure you all know, right, in the space. But again, I think good things. I think it'll shake itself out. But then there's time of watching and trying to support all the other content in the space that it has made me where I haven't been putting out content like I should. To be honest, another legitimate critique, I will try to work to get you more content. I'm sure when things calm down with my career, in terms of me just getting a lot, just getting into like just being able to, get into like a rhythm. I'm sure I'll be able to post, but my goal is at least once every 2 weeks. Because I have to do it when I don't have my son. My son is here. It's just like I'm like running around. If you check out my first Bible study, was Adam a simp? You'll see that like I didn't even have time to like edit it or anything. I just put it up, and you'll see in the video I'm just like, well, you got those kids, man. Them kids, bro. Them kids don't play. Them kids, man. They take a lot of strength. They take a lot of energy. So when I have my son, I just can't do it. And I have my son every other week. I have him 1 week, mom has him next week, we switch off. So on the week that I have him, can't post. Just cannot do it. The week I don't have him, usually because I've had to spend so much time with him, I haven't been able to, dive into work as like I would really like to. So I get more into work then, and then, I look up and it's like, bro, can you shoot? And today is like, nope, so now I have to wait another 2 weeks because now my son's coming back. And then, I'm trying to, make sure I support the brothers, like I say, so it can be hard, but I promise you I'm working on it. If ever there's a long, gap in my content, it's just because I'm trying to, manage a lot of things here. But you should still be seeing me on Bernard Riley's channel. And so, yeah, I still will be, and I've been camming up even lately on Bernard Riley's channel. So you can catch me there. Of course, you can
If Angryman is live and I'm not there, I'm kicking myself. Every show I miss is a 5 show, but it's been kind of crazy. I can't beat myself up about that. But yep, hope to get you a lot more content, a lot more consistently. In the meantime, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Please like, share, and subscribe. And remember, if no one in the world loves you, the Lord Jesus Christ loves you. Have a good night.